Adanna was always the most robust girl in the village of Ibadan. Since she was a baby, her size drew attention, but as she grew, it became a burden. The village children, especially the girls, ridiculed her mercilessly, calling her cruel names like hippopotamus and buffalo. They laughed at her tight clothes and humiliated her whenever possible. At village parties or celebrations, Adanna felt even more isolated as the other girls danced and had fun while she stayed aside, trying not to draw attention. Adanna tried to ignore the taunts, but it was difficult. The other girls set traps, placing stones in her path so she would fall, laughing at her missteps. This made her feel increasingly alone and depressed. Without friends, Adanna sought refuge in the solitude of her cabin and the company of the plants she lovingly cultivated. This forced isolation made her reserved, but also gave her a unique sensitivity to perceive the beauty of the small things around her. She loved watching the flowers bloom and the graceful flight of the birds, finding comfort in the nature that seemed to accept her as she was. Adanna did not understand why the other children were so cruel. She wondered if she would ever have a true friend. Her mother tried to console her, saying that her true beauty would one day be recognized, but Adanna found it hard to believe. Nights were the worst. She stayed awake, hearing the laughter of the other girls as they played, feeling excluded and unwanted. Each laugh was like a stab in her heart, and she often cried herself to sleep, holding an old teddy bear her mother had given her when she was younger. One of Adanna's few pleasures was sewing. She learned to create beautiful dresses using fabric scraps her mother gave her. These creative moments were an escape, a world where she felt in control and capable of creating something beautiful. Her talent for sewing was impressive, but few people in the village knew about it, as Adanna preferred to keep her work secret, fearing more ridicule. In her lonely nights, she dreamed of sewing for important people and being recognized for her skill, but those dreams seemed distant. Her mother, a strong and loving woman, was her only support. She always said, "My daughter, true beauty lies in the heart. One day, someone will see that in you." Adanna wanted to believe this, but the reality of daily life in the village made her doubt. Each morning, she woke up with a sense of dread, anticipating the taunts and teasing she would face. One day, a new family moved to the village, bringing with them a daughter named Kamaria. Kamaria was the opposite of Adanna, slender, graceful, with long black hair and bright brown eyes. She wore beautiful bracelets and colorful bead necklaces that contrasted with her vibrant Andara dresses. Kamaria seemed to have stepped out of a painting, always elegant and well-dressed, with a smile that charmed everyone around her. Quickly, Kamaria became popular among the village girls, who admired and wanted to be her friend. She was the center of attention at parties, and everyone wanted to be near her. Observing everything from her cabin, Adanna felt a glimmer of hope and curiosity. Maybe Kamaria could be different. Gathering all the courage she had, Adanna approached Kamaria while she was surrounded by a group of girls. In a faint voice, Adanna said, "Hello, my name is Adanna. I live in the cabin next to yours and would like to be your friend if you don't mind." Kamaria looked at Adanna and laughed maliciously. In a loud voice for everyone to hear, she said, "Adanna, why would I want to be your friend? Why would I be friends with a girl as fat and ugly as you? You are repulsive. Get out of here and never speak to me again." The other girls laughed along with Kamaria and started mocking Adanna, chanting, "Heavy, heavy, big girl, nobody likes you." Adanna felt a sharp pain and growing anger in her heart. She ran home crying and locked herself in her cabin. She felt so sad that she ended up eating all the food intended for her family. She wished she could disappear or be someone else. In the following days, the situation did not improve. Kamaria led the other girls in new taunts against Adanna, making each day an emotional battle for her. Adanna began avoiding leaving home whenever possible. She spent her days sewing and caring for her plants, trying to find some peace in her solitary activities. Her mother noticed the growing sadness in her eyes and did her best to cheer her up, but Adanna was trapped in a cycle of pain and loneliness. Sometimes she looked at the dresses she sewed and imagined what it would be like to wear them without fear of judgment, to walk the village streets with pride. Kamaria, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on the attention she received. She not only led the taunts against Adanna, but also manipulated the other girls to follow her in her cruelties. Kamaria loved being the center of attention and used her beauty and charm to ensure everyone admired her. She knew exactly what to say and do to maintain her popularity, and never hesitated to use Adanna as a scapegoat for her own feelings of insecurity and envy. A few days later, a royal messenger arrived in the village, announcing that the king of Oyo was looking for a wife and would soon visit the village to choose one. The messenger instructed all eligible young women to prepare for the king's arrival, as he would choose the most beautiful and charming among them. The news caused great excitement in the village. All the girls, except Adanna, began to groom themselves and adorn themselves with their best clothes and jewelry. They practiced their manners and poses, hoping to impress the king. Kamaria, the most confident and ambitious, was sure that the king would fall in love with her at first sight and that she would become the future queen. She already saw herself wearing a crown, walking beside the king in a grand palace. Adanna, on the other hand, had no interest in the king's visit. She was convinced that because she was fat, he would never choose her, and that she would only face more humiliation and rejection. She remained in her cabin, lamenting her miserable life and wishing she could escape her reality. While the other girls frantically prepared, Adanna continued her sewing work and plant care. Her mother, noticing her daughter's sadness, suggested that she also prepare for the king's visit. "You never know, my daughter. Sometimes the most unexpected things happen," said her mother with an encouraging smile. But Adanna only sighed and continued sewing, not believing that anything good could happen to her. In the days leading up to the king's arrival, the village was in a frenzy. The young women practiced their manners, rehearsed conversations, and carefully chose their most elegant outfits. Kamaria, in particular, was dazzling. She wore a dress made of golden silk adorned with shiny beads, and her mother gave her a jade necklace that had been in the family for generations. Kamaria was convinced that the king could not resist her beauty and charm. The day of the king's visit finally arrived. He was tall and imposing, with a golden crown on his head and a lion skin cape over his shoulders. After greeting the village chief and elders, the king began meeting the village girls. They did their best to charm him with smiles and compliments, but he was not impressed. The girls tried to appear graceful and intelligent, but something was missing. Kamaria was the most aggressive, displaying her curves seductively. She approached the king with a confident smile, trying to enchant him with her beauty. However, the king was not impressed by her or the others he considered superficial. He was looking for a girl who was not only beautiful, but also humble and kind. With each conversation, he looked for something deeper in the young women's eyes, a spark of true compassion and integrity. When the king was about to give up and leave, he noticed a cabin he had not yet visited. He asked the village chief who lived there, and the chief explained that it was Adanna's parents' cabin. He described Adanna as the fattest girl in the village, always alone in her cabin, caring for her plants. The chief suggested that the king not waste his time meeting her, as she was not the type he was looking for. Intrigued, the king decided to see Adanna for himself. He walked to the cabin and knocked on the door. Adanna responded in a weak voice, "Who is it?" The king replied, "Adanna, please don't be afraid. I am the king and would like to speak with you." Adanna hesitated but felt a strange attraction to the king's voice. Curious about what he wanted, she opened the door and let him in. Seeing the king, she was surprised by his gentle smile and kind eyes. He entered the cabin, noticed its simplicity and cleanliness, and saw the dresses Adanna had sewn. Impressed, he observed her closely and saw a beautiful woman with a lovely face and big eyes. The king began talking with Adanna, discovering her sewing skill and her knowledge of plants. He was charmed by her kindness and humility. They spent hours talking, and the king became increasingly impressed with Adanna. He admired the way she spoke about her plants with love and passion, and how her eyes sparkled when she described the dresses she created. The king decided that she would be his queen, surprising the entire village. Kamaria, furious and full of envy upon learning that the king was interested in Adanna, decided to turn to the forest witch to cast a spell that would make the king love her and hate Adanna. The witch was feared by everyone in the village, known for her dark and dangerous powers. Kamaria was not afraid of the witch, as she had visited her before. The greater fear was losing the king and seeing Adanna happy. She was willing to pay any price and take any risk. That night, Kamaria gathered all her savings and walked for hours to the witch's cabin. The forest was dark and silent, with only the nocturnal sounds of animals to keep her company. Determined, Kamaria reached the witch's cabin and knocked on the door. A hoarse and sinister voice responded, "Who is there?" Kamaria firmly said, "Great Witch of Enugu, I need your help. I have come to make a deal with you." The door creaked open and the witch appeared, a hunched and frightening figure with piercing eyes. "What do we have here? A pretty girl with a big problem. Come in, let's talk." Kamaria entered the dark cabin, filled with eerie things: skulls, bones, feathers, and vials of poison. The witch sat in front of a bubbling cauldron, next to a black cat, a snake, and an owl. Kamaria felt a chill down her spine, but her determination was greater than her fear. "Come closer, my dear. What do you want from me?" asked the witch. Kamaria replied, "I want the king to love me. I want him to hate Adanna, to choose me and make me his queen." The witch smiled maliciously. "I can do that, but it's not a simple spell. It costs a lot." Kamaria, without hesitation, asked, "What is the price?" The witch replied, "I want your soul, your spirit, your essence, the thing that makes you human." Kamaria was shocked. "My soul? What will you do with my soul?" The witch laughed. "I will use it for my pleasures to make more spells and potions. I will become stronger and more powerful." Kamaria, desperate to have the king, agreed. She drank the potion and immediately felt excruciating pain. She screamed and writhed until she passed out. When she woke up, she felt empty inside, without feelings or thoughts. Kamaria took the potion but soon realized that something was wrong. The pain she felt was excruciating, as if her soul was being ripped from her body. She fell to the ground, writhing and screaming. The world around her darkened, and she felt like she was falling into an endless abyss. When the pain finally ceased, she opened her eyes, but everything seemed different. She stood up but felt empty inside, without emotions, without clear thoughts. She lost the ability to feel joy, sadness, love, or hatred. All that remained was a deep and endless void. Kamaria became a hollow shell, a shadow of what she once was. Meanwhile, the king and Adanna continued to get to know each other. He admired her sewing skill and her knowledge of medicinal plants. Her kindness and humility were qualities he greatly valued. They spent many days together, and the king became increasingly convinced that Adanna would be the perfect wife. The king finally announced his decision. To everyone's surprise, he chose Adanna to be his queen. The village was in shock, especially Kamaria, who now wandered aimlessly, unable to feel or think. Adanna was incredibly happy, not only because she would be queen, but because she had finally found someone who loved and valued her for who she truly was. Kamaria, in her desperate attempt to win the king's love, ended up losing the most precious thing: her soul. She paid the price for her envy and malice, living the rest of her days in a state of eternal emptiness. Adanna, on the other hand, found the true love and acceptance she had always desired. In an unexpected turn of events, Adanna's kindness and true beauty prevailed, while Kamaria's villainy led her to an empty and purposeless existence. Adanna became queen and began making significant changes in the village. She created programs to help young women develop their skills and find confidence in themselves, regardless of their appearance. Adanna used her story as an example of overcoming, encouraging everyone to value kindness and humility above all else. Adanna's influence as queen began to transform the village. People started to value inner qualities more than outward appearances. Adanna's work as a seamstress also gained prominence. Her clothes, known for their beauty and intricate details, were appreciated and sought after by many, including people from other villages. Adanna found great satisfaction in her work, as each piece of clothing she created was a symbol of her journey and her overcoming. Adanna and the king's wedding was a magnificent celebration that brought people from all over the region. During the ceremony, Adanna wore a stunning dress she had sewn herself, full of intricate details that reflected her talent and dedication. All those present were amazed by her skill, and many could not hold back tears seeing the happiness in Adanna and the king's eyes. Kamaria, on the other hand, was absent. Wandering aimlessly, she was now just a shadow of what she once was. Her outer beauty had faded, leaving only a dark emptiness behind. Adanna's story spread quickly, inspiring many to value kindness and humility above appearance. The village's young women began to learn from Adanna's example, striving to be better with themselves and others. Her mother's words, which once seemed like a distant consolation, were now recognized as a profound truth. True beauty is in the heart. Adanna, now queen, used her position to promote compassion and justice, ensuring that no one else in the village would go through what she did. Adanna lived a full and meaningful life, alongside the king who loved her for who she truly was. She became a symbol of hope and perseverance, showing that no matter how difficult the journey, kindness and true beauty will always find a way to shine. She was remembered as a fair and kind leader who never let power corrupt her heart. Moral of the story. Adanna's story teaches us that true beauty is not in outward appearances, but in kindness, humility, and inner strength. Perseverance in the face of adversity and the ability to keep a pure and kind heart, even when facing cruelty and rejection, is what truly defines our beauty and worth. Kamaria, with her superficial beauty and envious heart, lost everything by trying to destroy what was good and pure. Adanna, by staying true to herself, found true love and acceptance, showing that kindness always triumphs over malice. This story is a powerful reminder that we should value people's inner qualities and not judge them solely by their appearance. We should be compassionate and kind because we never know the battles others are fighting. And above all, we must remember that true beauty comes from within, and that is what truly matters. Adanna also left a lasting legacy. She founded a school for girls where she taught sewing, gardening, and other crafts, but also values of kindness, respect, and self-acceptance. Her classes were highly sought after, and she personally guided the young women, helping them discover and develop their talents. The school became a beacon of hope and transformation for many generations. Each year on her wedding anniversary, the village organized a grand celebration in Adanna's honor. During this event, many girls who had been helped by Adanna took the stage to share their stories of overcoming, inspiring others to follow in her footsteps. Adanna listened to each story with tears of pride in her eyes, knowing that her difficult journey had helped transform so many lives. Adanna and the king had a happy life together, ruling with justice and compassion. They had children who grew up learning from their mother's example to value people's hearts. The kingdom of Oyo flourished under their reign, becoming known for its peace and prosperity. Kamaria, on the other hand, never recovered from her fall. Her story served as a warning to others about the dangers of envy and superficiality. She became a lonely figure, avoided by all, and spent her days wandering, reflecting on the choices she made and the price she paid for her malice. And so, Adanna and Kamaria's story became a legend in Oyo, told from generation to generation. It was a story of pain, transformation, and triumph that taught valuable lessons about what it truly means to be beautiful and valuable.